Leading off tonight, taking sides. President Obama asked for last night's news conference to talk about health care. But the biggest news may end up being what he said about the arrest of an African-American scholar, Henry Louis Gates. He said the Cambridge, Massachusetts police acted, quote, stupidly in arresting Gates. Well, the case and the president's answer touched a very sensitive issue in American politics and history. It's called racial profiling. Police treating minorities as suspects because they're minorities. We'll be joined by, among others, tonight, Lynn Sweet of the Chicago Sun-Times, who raised that provocative question at last night's news conference. The President of the United States, what's the sense of the White House, Lynn? You raised the question last night. You asked it. Here's what President Obama said last night after your question about the arrest of Professor Gates. Let's listen.
The police are doing what they should. There's a call. They go investigate what happens. My understanding is, at that point, Professor Gates is already in his house. The police officer comes in. I'm sure there's some exchange of words, but my understanding is that Professor Gates then shows his ID to show that this is his house. And at that point, he gets arrested for disorderly conduct, charges which are later dropped.
Well, Lynn, the president, what's the sense? Were you surprised he was so engaged and basically took sides in this case on the side of the professor against the police, saying they acted stupidly, saying that the professor provided his ID, although the police report says he did not initially provide his ID, said that the man lost his keys when in fact he hadn't lost his. He got a couple facts wrong last night, the president, apparently.
I'll tell you, I was surprised that he used that stupidly phrase. I've followed him for so many years, Chris. He's usually so in control. To see something, to say something that is a kind of a radioactive phrase that could just hurl out into the talk show and blogosphere universe. And also, you could be judgmental without having used that kind of language. You know, I knew that Professor Gates was a friend of his. I knew that Obama had lived in Cambridge when he was in law school. I knew that, you know, he did, as he reminded all of us when he talked about it, that he had spent many years dealing with profiling issues in the state Senate. But even so, I was surprised with the passion and emotion that he brought to this answer.
Well, here's what the president said later. I want your response to this, Lynn. You cover the president all the time. Here's what he said today, quote, I have to say I was surprised by the controversy surrounding my statement because I think it was pretty straightforward commentary. It was a pretty straightforward commentary. You probably don't need to handcuff a guy, a middle-aged man who uses a cane who's in his own home.
The health care
I got a lot of flack today from readers who thought my question was inappropriate because I should have asked yet another question on health care. And this was not a press conference called where everyone had asked health care questions. It was just a press conference.
What kind of people made that comment?
I had it from
people. Were they
people,
anti-Obama or pro-Obama?
Well, it came from both ends. People who thought that, wanted the Obama agenda to get advanced in Congress thought that I created a distraction, and people that were against Obama thought that I was a plant, which, by the way, I was not, and the White House had no idea what I would ask.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't take those comments too seriously.
Well, but
I wouldn't even read them.